The door swung open and the class went quiet, as if the air itself had paused to listen. Bullies tried teasing the new teacher, but none of us were ready for how quickly the ground would shift, 30 seconds that would turn a sneer into a plea for forgiveness and leave a permanent mark on our lives. I remember the buzzing lights, the dry smell of markers, and the way my fingers tapped a nervous beat on my notebook as curiosity and dread tangled inside me. Her name was Ms. Carter. She had kind eyes that didn't wobble and a posture that said she had already done this hard thing before. She set down a weathered leather bag, smoothed the navy blazer over her shoulders, and wrote her name with steady strokes. No theatrics, no threat, just a soft hello. The room answered with whispers because that's what the room had learned to do around Jake and his crew. They had trained us to let jokes do the hitting for them. Jake reclined in his chair, long legs hooking the metal bar beneath his desk. Ryan and Mike copied him, choosing to be a chorus to his melody. "Where are you going with this, newbie?" Jake called before a lesson had begun. His tone tried to climb over her and claim territory. A few kids giggled, the safety laugh everyone knows. It is easier to laugh than to stand alone, and easier to be cruel than to be brave. Ms. Carter did a strange thing. She didn't take the bait. She looked at the clock, then smiled at us as if she already liked who we might become. "I'm going somewhere honest," she said. "Come with me, if you'd like." Pride, however, hates gentle invitations. Jake pushed from his chair and walked the aisle like a dare. When he reached her, he set his palm against the lapel of her blazer, not shoving, not gentle, just enough to make the room gasp. Even his friends blinked. "If you don't control yourself," he said, amused by his own audacity, "I'll show you what power means." The words rolled out like a threat wrapped in a joke, the kind that supplies a bully two exits: I was serious or I was kidding. Ms. Carter offered him neither. She placed her fingers on his wrist and moved his hand away, not with force but with certainty, as if returning a borrowed object. Then she spoke softly, and somehow the softness made the room lean in. "Power is the ability to lift a moment instead of lowering it," she said. "Real power is control of yourself when your feelings are loud, and kindness when your audience wants cruelty." Jake tried to smirk, but something in him flickered, confusion, maybe recognition. She took a single step forward, not crowding him, just filling the space fear had been occupying. "You have 30 seconds, she said, eyes steady. "Find the strongest version of yourself and bring him here." It wasn't a threat. It was a doorway. The clock ticked. 10 seconds of stubbornness, 10 of uncertainty, 10 of us seeing each other too clearly. We saw Jake's jaw clench, Ryan's foot jitter, Mike's gaze drop. We saw our own silence, traded for safety. Ms. Carter didn't move. She didn't call security. She simply waited with belief so bold it felt like a force field. Jake broke first. His voice came out smaller than his shoulders. "I'm sorry," he said, not to the floor but to her face. The room loosened. Ryan offered a sorry that sounded like gravel, and Mike followed with one that sounded like rain. 30 seconds, and the weather had changed. The loudest boys had learned that being seen can be heavier than being feared. It would be tidy to end there, but life is wider than a single moment. After class, the hallway scrambled to make meaning. By lunch, the rumor had shape: the new teacher hypnotized Jake, the new teacher threatened to call the cops, the new teacher cried. None was true. What was real was quieter: the way Jake avoided the cafeteria windows, how Ryan snapped at a joke he would usually enjoy, how Mike walked slower than usual as if time itself had thickened. I sat with Maya and Luis under the flag of the shared understanding people get when they have been the butt of jokes. Maya had endured whispers about her stutter. Luis had been shoved for liking art more than football. We had gotten good at invisibility. "She didn't flinch," Maya said, tearing a napkin into careful strips. "She did a little," I replied, "but she kept the flinch from steering." Luis surprised us. "We should talk to Jake." I laughed until I saw he was serious. Not to fix him, he said. To give him a chance to be different while the moment is still warm. The next day, Ms. Carter began with a story. She told us about a kid who used laughter like armor and anger like currency, a boy who discovered during community service that a toddler's trust can melt a storm. She never said the kid was Jake, but the echoes were plain. Jake stared at his desk, jaw tense, as if part of him wanted to fight the tenderness rising in the room. We started a unit on narratives, the kind that arc from trouble to meaning. Ms. Carter asked us to write about a time we misunderstood power. My pen galloped. I told the truth about the day I laughed at someone to keep myself safe, how the laugh felt like a stone afterward. Across the room Maya wrote fiercely, and Luis drew a tiny boxing glove in his margin before crossing it out, as if retiring a mascot that never fit him. Jake stayed after class. I pretended to pack slowly. He said, "I'm not good at this." She said, "Which part?" He said, "Not being the guy people expect me to be. If I change, I'll look weak." She shook her head. "You'll look free." He didn't answer, but he didn't look away. Sometimes that is the first surrender and the bravest. Challenges multiplied, the way new choices collide with old scripts. Some kids mocked Jake for going soft. The principal phoned Ms. Carter to ask whether she wanted formal discipline, and she kept saying, "Not yet." A rumor spread that she had a hero complex. But those of us who paid attention saw something truer. She wasn't collecting broken kids like trophies, she simply refused to give up on anyone, including the ones who pretended they didn't need anyone. On a windy Tuesday, trouble found us again. The fire alarm screamed for real, smoke curling from a prank gone wrong in the chemistry lab. The nearest exit was blocked by custodians hauling equipment, so Ms. Carter steered us to the east stairwell. Students pushed and jostled, old survival patterns waking up. Maya froze halfway down, breath hitching, stutter snapping back like a rubber band. "Can't move," she whispered. Jake stood 2 steps below her. For a heartbeat the old reflex flashed across his face, the urge to shove. Then something else arrived. He turned, made his body a shield against the crowd, and said, strong but not loud, "I've got you." He met her eyes and counted together. 1, 2, 3. On 3 they moved. Ryan and Mike fell into place, one above, one below, creating a pocket of calm in a human river. We spilled onto the lawn coughing and blinking at the sun. Out under the sky, sirens fading, Maya sat shaking. Jake crouched next to her and said, "Thanks for letting me help." "Not I saved you." "Not you owe me." "Just thanks." Ms. Carter watched from a few feet away, gratitude bright on her face but her hands to herself, the way you let new courage stand on its own legs. Later the principal praised evacuation leaders over the intercom, and Ms. Carter did not mention names. Pride grew best in shade. The day after the alarm, the hallways carried a new quiet. Students noticed that Jake wasn't laughing at easy targets. He wasn't perfect, but he was choosing a different road again and again. Ryan discovered jokes that didn't require a villain. Mike started sitting with Luis and asked about shading like a beginner who loved learning. People changed in visible, ordinary inches, the only way people truly change. Ms. Carter kept teaching like a gardener waters weathered soil. She assigned a service project, 3 hours helping in a place that makes something better for someone. Choices ranged from the food pantry to the senior center to cleaning the riverbank. Jake signed up for the community daycare, the same place from her story. On the day of his shift, he showed up with a shirt too nice for paint and left with finger marks on his sleeves and a small truck tucked into his pocket, a gift from a boy who loved the way Jake read aloud. We wrote letters to our future selves. The prompt was simple: who are you when nobody is watching? Ms. Carter promised to mail them a year later. When the bell rang, she asked if anyone wanted to share. Luis read about choosing art over applause. Maya read about choosing breadth over speed. I read about choosing kindness even when the room wants a show. Then Jake lifted his letter. He cleared his throat and said, I'm someone who thought control meant winning arguments. I'm learning it means winning myself. Every head bowed a little, the way people bow when a truth walks by. The year rolled forward with its ordinary weights, tests, games, birthdays, days that felt too long and months that felt too short. We still slipped into sarcasm. We still argued. But the shape of the class changed. It felt like a room where you could risk being yourself without paying a tax. Ms. Carter never bragged. She kept doing small brave things, listening, naming good moments, setting boundaries like fences that protect gardens from hungry deer. By spring, Jake, Ryan, and Mike asked if they could help Ms. Carter run a peer circle for younger students struggling with the same shadows they once wore. She said yes on one condition, no rescuing, only standing beside. They sat with 7th graders who felt invisible and 8th graders who felt too visible, and they practiced the 30-second pause, wait, look, believe, invite. Some afternoons ended in silence. Some ended in laughter. A few ended in the kind of tears that clean a wound. One afternoon, I found Jake alone in the classroom, staring at a sentence Ms. Carter had written, "Be the person you needed before you knew better." He traced the letters with his eyes, then said to no one in particular, "Okay." It was quiet, but you could hear the hinge turning. Graduation arrived with folding chairs, proud families, and the ache of goodbye. When Ms. Carter handed Jake his diploma, he held on a heartbeat longer than custom allowed. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he whispered. She smiled the way she did when she saw the best part of someone show up. "Thank you for not giving up on yourself," she replied. They tapped their hands together once, not a handshake, not a high five, something in between, something new. I think about those 30 seconds more than any test or trophy from that year. The lesson was simple and stubborn and worth everything. Real power is choosing the higher road when the lower one shouts your name. It is controlling yourself when anger bristles, lifting others when you could easily push them down, turning bravery into a habit instead of a headline. The bullies didn't vanish, they graduated into something better. The witnesses didn't stay small, they became participants in their own story. If you listened this far, I want to ask you something. Tell us about your 30 seconds, any moment when you stood at the crossroads between impulse and integrity and chose the path that made you kinder, wiser, more yourself. Leave your story in the comments, because someone out there needs the map you have already drawn. And if this story stirred anything in you, if it reminded you that the strongest person in the room is the one who protects the room, please like this video, share it with people you love, and subscribe to Heartfelt Tales. Comment below with a moment when you chose patience over pride, or courage over cruelty, and tell us what changed afterward for you and others. If the lesson mattered, share this story, like the video, and subscribe to Heartfelt Tales to support more uplifting, human, heart-true storytelling. Your voice can guide someone through their storm.